So I want to quickly talk about the deep neural networks. Okay, so the deep neural networks are not significantly different, actually, from the old things that we have seen. All right. Now, when you look at a deep neural network, try not to be confused by the different architectures behind the deep neural networks. They are more or less the same. There will be, if you're talking about CNNs, there will be a number of convolutional layers. Okay, now how do you set up? Download a program, TensorFlow or PyTorch, and then there will be built-in libraries to tell you how to type the syntax. You can build all these. Okay. Now, once you look at the diagram, you realize that the first few layers, they are usually convolutional. Okay. Why are they convolutional? Because you want to extract the features at different scales. And then the convolution are doing what? As I said, it's getting the feature. But where do all these filters come from? That comes from the optimization. So you set all these up, you look at the output, and then that will give you a prediction. And you say that the prediction doesn't really match my ground truth. So I back propagate. So I send the gradient back, right? So I calculate the gradient descends. I solve that optimization problem to update my filters, right? So there will be a feedback mechanism. We go back to the pipeline that we described before. There will be a feedback through my optimization to change the filter response. And then once you change the filter response, the response will become different. And so the output will become different. And then you check again, and you're not happy, you fix again, right? So that would be the pipeline. So the whole idea here is that you have a convolutional layer. Now, all these, they are not relevant, okay? All these, they're just there for different purposes. Let's say you're doing a subsampling because you want to look at, you don't want to look at the entire image. You want to look at a smaller image. You want to concentrate the features to be a smaller object. So maybe you want to squeeze some of the high level content out. So then you do the subsampling. And then after this, you do a fully connected layer because you believe that the convolution may not be the right thing to do after so many layers. You may want to do some easier kind of connectivity. So you do the fully connected layers. Right? So that is the basic ideas behind this convolutional neural network. So this is a diagram I extracted from the internet. It's sort of yes and no. It's debatable, okay? Because for different problems, you really have different responses. This example shows that if you have a car image, you go through all these deep neural networks. It's just multiple layers of convolutions with some additional nonlinearity in between. You are pulling different features. So these are the filters that you use, okay? Or you can think that these are the I think these are the filter responses. Okay, so after you filter it out, you will get these kind of responses. These are the features. Okay, so this may be a little bit clearer. These are the features. So let's say this is your image. You go through this convolutional neural network. What do you get? Well, you will get you will get the low-level features. And then gradually you will get the mid-level features, and then gradually you will get the high-level features. Okay? So, the reason why you really need that many layers is that you want to have a hierarchy of all these from low to high-level features. And then after this is the interesting point. After this, you can actually build a linear separable classifier to make your decision. Okay? So, everything you have been doing here is extremely complicated. You have nonlinearity, you have XYZ, you have convolution, downsampling, skip connections, etc., etc. After everything, you apply a linear classifier. All right, you are applying a very simple logistic regression here, or you are applying SVM here. But of course, in deep neural network, everything is embedded. It's end-to-end training. So this is another classifier. Okay, and by linear classifier, I really mean that your discriminant function is Gx equals to W transpose X plus B. Okay, so you have a feature vector X, and then you have this W transpose X plus B. B is the offset. Okay, everything you're doing here is that simple. The complicated thing is, of course, to extract the features. So if you have this perspective in mind, then the convolutional neural network is nothing more than pulling the features out, so that at the end of the convolution, you will get a set of numbers. That could be 256 numbers. These numbers, they are the representation of that image. Right? So originally, what is the size of this image? It could be 1,000 by 1,000 pixel image. That would be 1 million or 10 million image, 10 million variable vector. That's too big for you to run a meaningful classifier, because in that space, in this input space, it could be highly nonlinear. You don't have way to classify them. And then you do all these magical nonlinear transformations by convolution concatenated by the nonlinearities. At this point, it suddenly becomes linear. Okay? And there you can do a very simple linear classification. Okay? And so all you're doing in this backpropagation training and so on is really to turn the image into a feature vector, so that you can run a linear classifier. And then you ask, okay, why do you want to learn linear classifier? It's because here we will be spending a lot of time talking about linear classifiers, because it's really the actual classification that you're doing here. Okay, it's not the magic of deep neural network. The magic of deep neural network is to give you feature vectors. So here is another example I got from the internet. So here are the low-level features, and then as you propagate through the neural network, the response will become slightly more meaningful. Okay, so they all start with the same low-level features, but when you go to the mid-layer, you can see that here you can get some eyes, you can get some nose. Here you can get the wheels, you can get the shape of the car, and so on. Right? So as you propagate to the final layers, then the response of the features will look like these. Okay, and then you are saying that my image can be represented as some of these. Right? Then you have a very, very compact representation of your input image. Okay, so here is another diagram that's illustrating, reinforcing what we have learned before. Okay, so you have an input image, and then this is a feature extraction stage. This is actually occupying majority of your neural network. Okay, so you have feature map 28 by 21, 14 by 14, 10 by 10, 5 by 5. This is what it's doing. It's doing feature extraction. Now, if you take a deep neural network course, of course, you will spend a couple lectures talking about, okay, what is the right dimension of this, and then how do you downsample it properly to turn from here to there, and then what is the implication of doing this downsampling, what would be the right choice, and how can the skip connection help you, and how do they build this residual network, and how does it work? So there are many, many different ways of realizing this feature extraction stage. Okay, the more complicated network you have, the more powerful feature extractions you will get. At the end of the day, you will still do this very simple classification. And that would be, so if you run this, the classification output would be these numbers. So, if you understand this part, then, you will understand a lot of the deep neural networks out there. Why? Well, because, if I run a deep neural network before the classification stage is just feature vectors, I can easily do the fusion of two deep neural networks. How can I do that? This is an example. You have this image, you have that image. You send them through two different neural networks, and then you pull their features out. So here is a feature vector. This is another feature vector. And then you have two feature vectors. And then you ask, okay, I want to integrate the information of these two different channels. How do? You just put a very simple, fully connected layer that takes these two channels in, and then let the magic of deep neural network to help you, and then they will glue the two information together, and then give you another overall representation. Then you can do the classification or whatever at this stage. Okay? So you can generalize this idea to have 10 different kinds of neural networks, and then you can pull the features together. That will also work. And if you read the papers out there, they're just a flood of these approaches, and they think they're very novel, but it's actually not that novel because you're literally just putting the two networks together, and then since they are the feature layers, you have a fully connected layer, and after enough training samples, this fully connected layer should be able to find a way to give you a better representation. Okay, so that's the underlying mechanism. Now, you may have also seen methods that does the reverse of this procedure. So once you have the feature layers, you can actually build another deep neural network to reconstruct the image. Okay, so this is called an encoder, if you want to call it. Okay, so there's encoding the image to feature vectors. But you can also do the inverse by starting with a feature vector, and then you build a neural network, and then it will try to reconstruct the image for you. Okay. That's also the underlying principle of things called like GAN, generative adversarial network, where you just dump in some random noise as your input. You treat them as your feature vectors, and then since the network is somehow trained, it will be able to generate an image for you. And of course, in the GAN setting, you also have a discriminator to do this the game theory thing, right? So you have two players, you want them to find the equilibrium point. But that's also is exactly the same principle here, where you have a feature vector, you want to do something with this feature vector. Once you have the feature vector, you can also do very classical computer vision tasks like Knearest Neighbor. So instead of using the image as the input to do KNN, you can use the feature vectors to do KNN. So that's like a hybrid KNN approach. You use the deep neural network, you use the ResNet 50, you use that network, you pull the feature from that network. So dump your image into ResNet 50, you pull the feature vectors there, and then you use the feature vector there to run your Knearest Neighbor. And that will improve your baseline Knearest Neighbor by a lot, because the feature is a lot lower dimension, and it is informative. And so when you do the Knearest Neighbor search there, it's better, okay? So here is an example where you input an orange, and then you're using certain deep features to run the KNN. These are the images that can be returned by the KNN. You can further use all these features to do image reconstruction type of problems. Here is an example where you pull the features of an image. That's the low resolution image. And then after you pull the features of that low resolution image, you also learn another neural network that can propagate these information to make it into a high resolution image. Okay? So once you have this feature vector, you can use for multiple applications. That's the message I want to explain. Okay? So when you read the neural network paper, do not be confused about the fanciness of the output, the results. What you really need to do is to understand what is the underlying principle of this neural network. In fact, most of the papers out there, they are more or less the same. Okay? Tweaking this parameter, tweaking that parameter, and then merging the two things together. Maybe skip connection for here, drop out somewhere, and then do some very, very simple tricks in the neural network. The bottom line is that the feature that they extracted is usually better compared to the state of the art before them. Okay, and afterwards, depending on what task, if you do classification, you have classification networks. If you do reconstruction, you have reconstruction networks. It's all along the same line of arguments. Okay, so here is a list of papers and references that you can take a look. I would especially encourage you to take a look at 661, which talks about this sift and hawk features. They're very, very interesting to learn about. Okay? All right, so I'll see you guys next time.